We live in a world that's just overflowing with technology. We have marvels at our fingertips. But have you ever stopped to ask why so many of us feel more stressed out and more disconnected than ever before? Well, we're going to explore how some really ancient wisdom might actually offer a surprisingly practical path for navigating the messes of our modern age. And this quote, man, it just hits you, right? For all our progress, for all the amazing gadgets and comforts we've built, there's this nagging feeling that something's just not right. We have more stuff, but we don't necessarily feel better. In fact, for way too many people, life has become a pressure cooker of stress, loneliness, and a lack of fulfillment. This isn't just a feeling, it's the central paradox of our time. So this brings us right to the core problem, what Buddhist thought would call a deep systemic imbalance. Our world is kind of tilted. It's prioritizing one thing at the expense of everything else. This is the crisis of modernity, an imbalanced world. I mean, just look around at our institutions. Our political systems, the ones that are supposed to create fairness and order, seem to be breaking down. The source material uses this really vivid phrase, saying democracy is limping along game-legged. And that just perfectly captures this feeling that our systems are wounded, that they're not living up to their promise anymore. And then there's society itself. We're all caught in what's described as the quicksand of consumption. We're told over and over that buying more things will make us happy. But even in the wealthiest countries, that's just not working. It's not stopping this widespread feeling of being isolated, frustrated, and searching for something more meaningful. So what's the diagnosis here? Well, it's pretty clear. We've put way too much emphasis on the material world. By defining quality of life almost completely in terms of money and stuff, we've basically ignored the spiritual side of ourselves, that essential part of being human that craves connection, purpose, and just a little bit of inner peace. And that forces us to ask a really big question. If the road we're on isn't leading to happiness or stability, then is there another way? What would a more balanced approach to life and society even look like? So what is this alternative? Well, Buddhist philosophy talks about a middle way, a path of harmony and balance. It's known as Dharma. Let's explore this path of balance. Now, Dharma isn't just about sitting on a cushion and meditating. It's way bigger than that. Think of it as a holistic principle for our best possible evolution, not just for us as individuals, but for us as a collective. It's about weaving together our inner spiritual lives with our outer lives, our politics, our economy, our whole community. Okay, this is where it gets really concrete and fascinating. For decades, we've measured a country's success using gross domestic product, or GDP. It's all about money and production. But the alternative, pioneered in Bhutan, is gross national happiness, or GNH. It's a total paradigm shift. GNH says, hey, real development can only happen when our material progress and our spiritual progress go hand in hand. And GNH isn't just some vague, feel-good idea. It's a real, practical framework that's built on 4 solid pillars. It redefines what a successful society is all about: sustainable development, strong cultural values, a healthy environment, and good governance. It's basically a blueprint for a more balanced world. So, all of this sounds great in theory, but how does it actually work in the real world? Let's take a look at some specific examples. This is wisdom in action, applying Buddhist principles to modern problems. Let's start with economics. This way of thinking pushes us toward what's called a sufficiency economy. The focus isn't on endless growth and wants, it's on making sure everyone's basic needs are met. This comes from the idea of right livelihood, which actually forbids doing business in areas that cause harm, things like weapons, human trafficking, and poisons. Now, when it comes to justice, the shift is huge. We move away from a system that's all about punishment and retribution and toward one that's about restoration. A restorative approach tries to understand why the crime happened in the first place, and then it works to heal the harm done, to the victim, to the community, and even to the person who caused the harm. And this quote, wow, it just brilliantly illustrates the belief in the power of transformation. These are the words that Buddha spoke to a notorious serial killer named Angulimala. Instead of condemning him, the Buddha's compassion and wisdom actually inspired Angulimala to completely renounce violence. He went on to become an enlightened disciple. It's just a profound story about the potential for change in every single person. And at the community level, you can really see this philosophy come to life. The Sarvodaya Shramadana movement in Sri Lanka, for example, is this huge self-governance organization built on shared values. Concepts like dana, which is about giving not just money, but your time and your skills, or karuna, which means active compassion. These aren't just nice ideals, they're the actual building blocks for strong cooperative communities. Okay, so let's just take a breath and connect the dots for a second. We started with the core problem, this spiritual hole created by a purely materialistic worldview. The solution we've been exploring is the balanced path of Dharma, and we've seen this isn't some abstract philosophy. It has real, practical applications, from changing how we measure success with GNH to totally reshaping our economy and our justice system. Now, this sense of balance and connection, it naturally expands outward to include our planet. This perspective offers a really deep ecology, one that sees the environment not as some resource we can just exploit, but as a part of ourselves we can't be separated from. There's this beautiful analogy from the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh that just captures this idea of interconnectedness perfectly. He said that if you really, truly look at a single piece of paper, you see the cloud, you see the rain, you see the trees and the logger. The entire universe is right there in that one piece of paper. Nothing exists by itself. And when you really get that on a deep level, it doesn't just stay an idea in your head, it inspires you to act. And we're not talking about impossible things. We're talking about simple, compassionate, practical steps that any of us can take. Things like reducing consumption, planting a tree, and most importantly, transforming our own minds to see ourselves as part of nature, not as separate from it. So, where does all of this leave us? Well, the path forward isn't just about changing ourselves. It's about a collective awakening. It's about the way forward, awakening society together. The ultimate goal here, the whole point, is a synthesis. It's a new model for development, where our human energy is aimed just as much at our inner spiritual growth as it is at our outer material well-being. It's about achieving a kind of prosperity that's true, that's sustainable, and that's for everybody. And look, I know the challenges we face are huge, and it's easy to feel pessimistic. But this perspective offers a really deep and lasting hope. It suggests that even in a time that feels dark and confusing, this ancient wisdom, this light of the Dharma, is still shining, and it's bound to be part of how we shape a better future. So this whole exploration leaves us with one final, quiet question to reflect on. This grand project of building a more balanced world, it doesn't start out there with governments or big institutions. It starts right here, with a personal choice. It begins with each of us in our own lives, deciding to take that first step onto the middle path.